Welcome, welcome. Come on in, sit right down, and demonstrate being the good students like you were all conditioned to be. You are about to witness a digital summary of my learning process through ECS 210. So, let's begin. My initial thoughts while sitting in classroom 212 at the beginning of the semester were as follows. How can we possibly spend one entire semester learning about one measly government document? Boy, were my initial thoughts naive in thinking that this is all that curriculum is. Little did I know that the official document is not the only type of curriculum that exists. There is curriculum as a body of knowledge to be transmitted, curriculum as product, curriculum as process, curriculum as praxis. There is even such a thing as the hidden curriculum. How can we as teachers be aware of all these forms of curriculum and keep them in mind when lesson planning and teaching? Well, that is where this course and its content come into play. To start it all off, my friends Michael and Katya introduced me to this cool guy who goes by the name of Kumashiro. He complicated my idea of this term common sense. Kumashiro defines this term as aspects of daily life that have become so routine and so commonplace that they often go unquestioned or uncriticized. Common sense is simply the way that things are and the way that they have always been. Kumashiro urges that we question and complicate this term further than that, as it often causes conformity to the social norms of the dominant group or a certain society or culture. It creates bias and privilege for some individuals, and yet it excludes others, not something that we want to be doing as pre-service teachers, if you ask me. This commonsensical notion extends even further. This idea draws heavily on our expectations of students and their roles within our classrooms. We use these common sense notions to construct images of what the ideal student would look like and, more importantly, how they would act. This has heavy implications for those students that struggle to fit into the mold that common sense outlines for them. Often, we then view these students as being problematic and disruptive to our classroom culture, rather than viewing how this mold doesn't suit them and their personal needs. What implications do these ideal images of students hold for those who do not neatly fit into our cookie-cutter mold? Possibly feelings of shame, guilt, inferiority, acting out, disruptive behaviors, low self-esteem, feelings of inadequacy. All in all, we need to shatter these images of the students and individualize them for each and every one. We now realize that individuals have their differences and their own learning preferences. We all bring new and improved funds of knowledge to our classrooms. Next, we introduced this Tyler guy and made aware of his rationale. Now, Tyler was a very traditional man with very traditionalist views. His perspective solely lied on the curriculum as a product model of education. He strongly focused on evaluation and assessment and not so much on the in-between or how students reached the outcomes. Imagine to yourself a cookie cutter. That is the image that comes to mind when I think about the Tyler rationale. He wanted every student to walk out the doors of high school having known and accomplished the same material and content. Where does their creativity go, you might ask? Well, it has no place here. I am still trying to overcome the impacts of my education and Tyler's traditionalist views on my educational journey. I find that he has impacted me in huge ways, and not in a good sense. Following Tyler, I soon learned that there are many different and more modern approaches to education. No longer is the focus on getting from point A to point B as quickly and efficiently as possible, but more so on what we learn and experience along the way. These new movements of education were led by some very inspirational big thinkers. We have the progressivists, with my favorite, John Dewey, as one of the leaders in this movement, viewing curriculum as learning by doing and incorporating more process into their classrooms. Next, we have the reconceptualists. And finally, probably my favorite movement, and the one that aligns with my philosophy the most, is the critical pedagogy movement with Paulo Freire at the forefront. This movement and Freire's principles align very closely with my passion for social justice. Moving on, I was urged to think about what say that I have in curriculum making as an educator and the actual practice of curriculum within the classroom. Initially, I figured that I had very little say. This may be true if you look at it in terms of creating the outcomes that guide your entire learning journey throughout a year. We do in fact have very little input in regards to creating the formal curriculum. In turn, when I dug a little deeper into this topic, it became evident to me that we do have a lot of leeway in regards to the indicators. In that respect, only our imagination can hold us back from getting creative in our classrooms and learning techniques. We can go about teaching a certain outcome in any way that we see fit. Essentially, although we are restricted in regards to outcomes, which can be seen as stone, we are free to roam when it comes to indicators, the sand. Now, let's shed some light on this hidden curriculum situation. This form of curriculum is almost unavoidable. It is the transmission of the norms, values, and beliefs of the society that we are a part of. These values and ideals seep into our instruction and radiate to our students like telepathic messages. It can subtly reinforce white privilege, hierarchy, power, gender ideals, and so forth. I have now become aware of this hidden agenda so that I can be critically conscious of these hidden ideals, and I can plan my lessons around them and make them more inclusive and diverse. Another major topic that stood out to me throughout the course of the semester was treaty education and reconciliation. Claire Kruger gave a very inspirational presentation to the class that helped to show me that we need to be ruthless in our efforts to incorporate treaty education content into our lessons. We need not fear the very common excuses that teachers give regarding not wanting to hurt anyone's feelings or be offensive, and not being knowledgeable enough of the content and the subject matter. She showed us that these excuses are not acceptable or valid, and that it is in our duty as educators to teach it regardless of how we feel. We are all treaty people, and we need that message to radiate through to our students regardless of their own culture or race. It takes two to make an agreement and relationship to work. We must begin to honor that agreement and work towards reconciliation for all of the hardships that we have created in the past. So all of that being said, when I look back on my initial thoughts about this course, I realized that they were extremely inaccurate. There was more than enough content to learn in regards to curriculum in the duration of one semester. We only skimmed the surface of the implications that the curriculum holds for us as teachers, as students, and even as citizens. I will spend my entire career thinking critically and digging deeper into this very document.